welcome back to the deep dive. I gotta be honest with you. Usually when we prep for these, I have a pretty clear idea of what we're walking into.
Right.
We grab the sources, we look for the patterns, we find the cool nuggets of information, and we build a narrative.
Usually it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, exactly. But looking at the stack of reports for this Saturday's UFC event in Houston, I mean, I feel like I need a stiff drink just reading through it.
You're definitely not alone in feeling that.
There is this weird, just electrical tension in the air right now. It feels like we aren't just looking at a fight for rankings anymore.
It's heavy. It is really heavy. We are technically previewing the main event between Anthony Fluffy Hernandez and the former champion Sean Strickland.
Technically being the key word there.
Right, because in a normal world, we'd be sitting here excitedly breaking down jab mechanics or, takedown defense. And don't worry, we are going to get to that.
We promise.
But the narrative has been completely hijacked.
Hijacked is the perfect word for it. It feels like the actual sport has taken a back seat to some reality TV drama that just completely went off the rails.
Exactly. And our mission today is to try and steer the car back onto the road.
Good luck to us.
Yeah, right. We have a massive amount of source material here to help us do that, though. We're pulling from pre-fight interviews, a lot of social media archives, coverage of a very chaotic Paramount Plus media day,
Oh boy.
and some really fascinating betting market data from Kalshi and DraftKings.
So we've got a lot of ground to cover.
We do. We need to unpack the psychological warfare, look at the controversy that sparked this whole firestorm, and then pivot to see what the cold, hard data says about who's actually going to win.
Because beneath all this noise, the cage door is still going to lock on Saturday.
It is.
That's the thing I keep forgetting. There is actually a physical fight happening.
It's easy to forget right now.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with the noise, because we frankly just can't ignore it. It's way too loud. The spark that really set this whole week on fire wasn't a punch it away in. It wasn't a shove.
Yo.
It was a picture.
Right. This is the moment the dynamic shifted from, just a professional rivalry to genuine personal animosity. It started with a social media post by Sean Strickland. Now, Strickland is known for being provocative, but this was, it was specific.
Very specific.
He posted a Photoshopped image of himself dressed as an ICE agent.
And just to clarify for anyone tuning in who maybe doesn't follow U.S. law enforcement acronyms, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Correct. So you have Strickland in the uniform of an ICE agent, and he had Photoshopped Anthony Hernandez into the image right next to him.
And it wasn't a flattering Photoshop.
No, he put Hernandez in a sombrero and a poncho.
Oof. Just, yeah. And knowing Strickland, I'm guessing he didn't leave it without a caption, right?
No, he certainly didn't. The caption was essentially a direct challenge to his critics.
What did he write?
He wrote, quote, "If you can't laugh at this, you're a C-word. Go away," end quote.
Wow. It's such a classic aggressive tactic, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I'm going to offend you, and if you get offended, well, that's your fault, not mine.
It's a preemptive defense mechanism.
Right. But here's what I found really interesting in the sources. You would expect Hernandez to just completely fly off the handle, right? To just start screaming at the nearest camera.
That's the standard fight promotion reaction.
Exactly. But his reaction was actually quite complicated.
It was surprisingly nuanced, and I think that actually makes it more powerful.
Yeah.
Hernandez did an interview with the New York Post Sports, and he admitted that his initial reaction was to chuckle.
Which, I mean, is honest. Sometimes sheer shock just makes you laugh.
Exactly. He said, quote, "Honestly, I laughed when I seen that shit."
Right. But he didn't leave it there.
No, he pivoted. He articulated exactly why it landed differently after that initial shock wore off.
He explained that it wasn't just about him being mocked personally.
Right. He said it's messed up because he knows people in his community who deal with those real struggles every single day.
Fear of deportation.
The profiling, the anxiety of dealing with ICE, it's a daily reality for a lot of people.
So for Strickland, it's just a meme for engagement. But for Hernandez's community, it's a life-altering reality.
Precisely. And there's a piece of history here that I think is crucial to understand for context.
Oh, about his walkouts.
Yeah. Hernandez has spoken before about having to actually prove his residency just to represent his Mexican roots during walkouts.
That's wild.
He has faced literal bureaucratic hurdles just to claim his heritage publicly on a broadcast.
So when you take that lived experience and you turn it into a joke about arresting him,
it hits a nerve that simple trash talk usually misses entirely.
That context really changes everything. It's not just the standard, you're ugly or you can't fight banter. It's targeting his core identity.
It is.
And that brings us to the response, which was honestly pretty chilling. I read the report on Hernandez's vow for the fight, and he didn't use the usual words like knockout or first-round finish.
No. He used the word torture.
Yeah, that literally stopped me in my tracks when I read it.
It should. It's an intense choice of words. Hernandez explicitly said he hopes Strickland keeps that exact same energy in the cage because he wants to, quote, torture him for the full 25 minutes.
25 minutes.
He told the press he wants to make it a long fighting night.
See, that's where the psychology gets a bit scary for me. Usually a fighter wants to get in, get the check, and get out completely safe.
The path of least resistance.
Right. But torture implies he actually wants to extend the suffering.
It suggests he doesn't just want to win on Saturday. He wants to punish. He wants to drag Strickland into deep waters and just hold his head under.
And as we'll discuss when we get to the styles, Hernandez actually has the gas tank to do exactly that.
He does. It is absolutely not an empty threat.
So you have the ICE post setting the stage. The tension is already at a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But then we get to Wednesday,
Wednesday.
Paramount Plus Media Day. And if the social media post was a spark, this Media Day was just pouring buckets of gasoline on the fire.
It was a total meltdown. There's really no other way to accurately describe what happened.
Seriously.
Sometimes you see fighters manufacture drama to sell pay-per-views, but this felt very different. Strickland seemingly decided to just broaden his target list beyond Hernandez.
He went after pretty much everyone.
He went after everyone.
It was a circus. I was reading the transcripts, and I honestly couldn't believe this was a professional sports media event for a major broadcaster. He started going in on women in general first, right?
Yes. And this is where the cancel me persona really took over the microphone.
Okay, unpack that.
So he made comments claiming that women are too empowered and that this empowerment has, in his specific view, ruined society.
Just a blanket statement.
A blanket statement. He stated that women should stay home, cook, and clean. And then he specifically targeted women's sports.
In a mixed martial arts press conference.
Right. He compared women's MMA to the WNBA, claiming that, quote, no one gives a fuck about women's sports.
Which is just a wild thing to say in the context of the UFC. I mean, you look at Ronda Rousey, Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, some of the absolute biggest draws in the history of the entire company have been women.
It is entirely illogical from a business standpoint.
Yeah. Seems like a terrible business move to alienate half your potential audience and your literal coworkers.
It does, but it fits his cultivated narrative. He didn't stop there, though. He decided to weigh in on the upcoming Netflix fight between Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano, which is happening in May.
Oh, right, the big streaming event. Did he actually offer any technical analysis on that matchup?
Not even slightly. The commentary was almost entirely based on objectification.
Of course.
He acknowledged Rousey can fight, though he made sure to take a dig at her losing to her ex. But with Carano, he made very sexualized comments.
What did he say?
He called her hot, but said she sucked as a fighter. And then he explicitly asked the reporters if they would be half naked during the fight.
Just completely dismissing them as world-class athletes.
Completely stripping away their athletic credentials. And then, in a pivot that I don't think anyone on Earth saw coming, he took aim at Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny. The musical performer.
Yes.
What does Bad Bunny have to do with a middleweight fight in Houston?
Absolutely nothing. But Strickland brought up the Super Bowl halftime show.
Okay.
He used multiple homophobic slurs. He criticized the NFL leadership, suggesting they were actively trying to ruin the sport by, and I'm quoting the reports directly here, trying to gay it up.
Wow.
He used the slur directly regarding Bad Bunny and made broad derogatory comments about gay foreigners.
It's just relentless. It feels like he was looking for every single button on the cultural control panel and just smashing them all at once.
It really does feel like that. But we have to contextualize this behavior. This isn't just an isolated bad day at the office.
You mean there's a pattern?
A very clear one. Do you remember the press conference in Sydney back in 2023?
Vaguely was at the incident with the shirt.
Exactly. He wore a shirt to the dais that literally said, "Cancel me," in huge letters right across the chest.
Right.
This is a highly cultivated brand. He has built his entire public persona around being the guy who says the things you supposedly can't say.
The ultimate edgelord.
He wants to be seen as the anti-hero. But critics, and honestly many fans too, judging by the MMA forums this week, are arguing that this crosses a fundamental line.
He goes from being a rebellious outsider to just actively delegitimizing the sport.
Exactly. The UFC has worked incredibly hard for 30 years to present a modern, inclusive, highly professional image to regulators and sponsors.
To get away from that 90s stigma.
Yes. And this kind of rhetoric drags the entire sport right back to the human cockfighting era in the eyes of the mainstream media.
So usually in these explosive media situations, the other fighters on the roster just stay in their lane. They keep their heads down and say, I'm just here to fight my fight.
Usually, yes.
But the reaction this time from the roster hasn't been silent at all, has it?
No, the backlash was immediate. And it came from the very top of the sport. Amanda Nunes, the former two-division champ.
Literally the greatest of all time in women's MMA.
Without question. She stepped in. She posted on Instagram responding directly to his comments about women being weak.
And what did she say?
She kept it very simple. She just wrote, "Don't cry, man."
I love that so much. Don't cry, man.
Oh.
It's so utterly dismissive of his entire tirade.
It cuts right to the core of the issue. She pointed out the sheer irony of the situation. He's sitting there calling women weak and saying society is soft, but he's the one acting fragile, constantly lashing out, and seemingly unable to handle existing in the modern world.
And she wasn't the only fighter to speak up, right?
Not at all. Luana Pinheiro chimed in and said he only talks crap. Amanda Ribos was a bit more graphic, saying he defecates through his mouth.
Very vivid imagery there from Ribos.
Very vivid. And then Anna Maria India took it a step further. She didn't just insult him, she actually analyzed him. She called it male fragility and suggested this entire pattern of behavior stems from unhealed childhood trauma.
Oh, wow. So the fighters aren't just mad at him, they're actually diagnosing him.
They're treating him like a patient, not a terrifying threat.
That is a fascinating shift in dynamics.
Yeah.
But amidst all this noise from the fighters and the media, isn't there a really notable silence from the actual bosses?
That is the massive elephant in the room right now. The sources consistently point out that despite this huge public outcry, and despite the fact that this happened at a sanctioned media event for Paramount Plus, which is a major corporate broadcaster,
A huge network.
both the UFC and Paramount Plus have remained largely silent.
Crickets.
No disciplinary action has been announced, no press statements distancing themselves, nothing.
Which honestly speaks volumes in itself. They're riding the wave of attention, for better or worse, because controversy brings eyeballs.
It always has.
Okay, so we have the hate. We have the massive controversy. We have the psychological diagnoses from his peers.
Right.
But on Saturday, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the cage door actually locks, and all the talking finally stops.
It has to stop.
I want to pivot to the actual athletics here, because believe it or not, there's a very high-level mixed martial arts bout happening underneath all this drama.
And if you manage to strip away the circus, it's actually an incredibly fascinating matchup stylistically.
Let's look at Anthony Hernandez first. I know he's 32, but it really feels like he's hitting his absolute peak right now.
He absolutely is. He is riding an 8-fight win streak.
Which is insane.
It is incredibly hard to do that in the modern middleweight division. It's a shark tank. He's coming off a really slick submission over Roman Dolidze back in August 2025.
Right.
And a brutal TKO of Michel Pereira before that. But honestly, it's how he wins those fights that matters most for this breakdown.
How so?
His entire style is defined by one single word: pace.
I keep hearing that from analysts. People constantly call him a cardio machine. But what does that actually look like inside a fight?
It means he literally weaponizes fatigue. Most fighters have a burst of high energy, then they have to rest, then they burst again. It's a rhythm.
Right. Catching their breath against the fence.
Exactly. Hernandez doesn't rest. He offers relentless forward pressure and incredibly heavy grappling. He is completely willing to just grind for the full fight time.
Just constant output.
He forces you to work every single second of the round. And this is exactly where that torture comment becomes highly relevant to the actual technical analysis.
Ah, so it's not just an emotional threat born out of anger. It's a tactical one.
Exactly. When he tells the media he wants to torture Strickland, he means he wants to drown him in pressure.
Drown him.
He wants to make Strickland grapple, wrestle, and defend takedowns for 25 minutes straight without a single break.
It sounds awful.
That is physical torture for a fighter who wants to stand and box.
And then on the other side of the cage, you have Sean Strickland. He's a former champ, but he's at a bit of a career crossroads right now, isn't he?
He is. He's 34 now. He's looking to rebuild his momentum after losing his belt in that very tight split decision against Dricus du Plessis back in February 2025.
And he's been pretty
Uh,
inactive since then, right?
yes, he hasn't fought since that title loss.
And his style is so fundamentally different from Hernandez. I've heard people describe his defense as the Philly shell.
Yes.
Now, I know that's primarily a boxing term. For those of you listening who aren't boxing nerds, what does a Philly shell actually look like in an MMA cage with 4-ounce gloves?
So the Philly shell is a defensive stance where you keep your lead arm draped low across your stomach and your rear hand is glued up by your chin.
Okay.
You use your lead shoulder to literally roll punches off your chin.
Hmm.
It's very effective for defending head strikes while conserving a lot of energy.
And Strickland uses that?
Exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
Strickland stands very upright, almost like he's just casually walking down the street. He relies heavily on that shoulder roll, a very stiff, heavy jab, and truly excellent distance management.
He wants to fight at range.
He wants to keep you exactly at the end of his punches.
So if I'm picturing this right, Hernandez wants to be right in your chest, suffocating you, and Strickland wants to be 3 feet away behind a jab.
Exactly. It's the classic chaos versus control matchup.
Right.
The defining question is, can Strickland keep Hernandez off him for 5 full rounds using that jab and that upright stance? Or does Hernandez just crash through that distance, completely ignore the jabs, and turn it into a gritty dogfight?
And there's a technical flaw with the shell in MMA, right?
There is. The Philly shell is amazing for pure boxing, but it leaves your lead leg a bit exposed to kicks, and more importantly, it relies on you being able to set your feet to counter.
So if you're moving backwards.
If Hernandez is constantly pushing you backward into the fence, it is very hard to use that shoulder roll effectively. You can't roll punches when you're backing up.
So the style matchup might actually favor the chaos of Hernandez here.
It very well might.
Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting for me. I was looking at the betting markets because I wanted to see what Vegas thought about this clash of styles.
Always smart to follow the money.
Right. And usually, when a recent former champion fights a rising contender, the champ is the betting favorite, right?
Almost always. The guy who held the belt usually gets the benefit of the doubt from odds makers, especially if he lost it in a very close split decision like Strickland did.
Well, I pulled the numbers and I honestly thought I was reading the spreadsheet backward.
It's wild.
What is going on with these odds?
It is genuinely shocking. I looked at the data from DraftKings and Kalshi, and the markets are essentially panicking on Strickland. DraftKings lists Strickland as a significant underdog right now at plus 230.
Plus 230. That implies he's got a pretty low chance of winning. That is a massively wide margin for a guy who was literally the world champion a year ago.
It's huge. But the prediction markets on Kalshi are even more stark.
Explain Kalshi real quick.
So for the listener, Kalshi is a bit different from a traditional sports book. It's an exchange where people trade on the outcome of events, almost exactly like a stock market.
Okay.
So it moves dynamically and reflects real-time crowd sentiment.
Like a fear index for sports.
Exactly. And right now, the crowd is aggressively buying Hernandez stock. Kalshi is giving Hernandez a 70% implied probability of winning the fight.
70%.
That leaves Strickland with only a 30% chance.
70-30. Against Sean Strickland.
Ah.
That seems really excessive. Is that just the hot hand fallacy because Hernandez has won 8 in a row?
That's definitely part of the math. Hernandez's momentum is undeniable. But I think there is something else happening in the markets here. We call it the distraction discount.
The distraction discount. I like that term. Unpack that for me.
The smart money looks at a fighter's overall preparation and mindset. Strickland has spent the last entire week starting massive fires on social media, fighting with media reporters, obsessing over Bad Bunny, and ranting about gender politics.
Right, he's busy being a pundit.
And he hasn't fought in a year. The markets might be looking at all of that extracurricular activity and saying, his head just isn't in the game.
Well, Hernandez is quietly plotting his revenge.
Meanwhile, Hernandez is laser-focused on one singular goal: torturing him for insulting his community.
So the market actually believes that the drama is a sign of fundamental weakness, not strength.
It certainly seems so, and there's one more layer to the data that confirms this: the prop bets.
Oh, I saw this part. The method of finish numbers.
Yes. The data says a decision is the most likely outcome of this fight at 69%. Submission is next highest at 46%.
Wait, does that align perfectly with the torture narrative?
Perfectly. If Hernandez wins, the data says it's likely going to be a grueling decision or a very late, exhausting submission.
Oh.
That means 15 or 25 minutes of pure grinding. The bettors aren't predicting a lucky punch in the first round. They are predicting a long, painful dismantling. The numbers are mathematically backing up Hernandez's emotional threat.
It's wild how the cold spreadsheets align exactly with the heated trash talk in this specific instance.
It rarely happens like this.
So to wrap this up, we have an incredible clash of fighting styles. The relentless graveler versus the technical striker.
Yes.
And a massive clash of personalities. The quiet, focused intensity versus the loud, chaotic controversy.
It is the ultimate hype versus hate dynamic, but this one feels substantially heavier because of the specific targeted nature of the insults. It's not just about selling tickets anymore, it's about deeply opposing worldviews.
That's the big takeaway for me. Why does this deep dive matter to you, the listener? I think this fight is a cultural litmus test. We always ask in fight sports, does controversy sell fights?
Right, we've asked that since the Ollie days.
But in 2026, I think we have to ask a different question. Does it sell fights, or does it become a toxic distraction that directly leads to a high-profile loss?
If Strickland loses on Saturday, the dominant narrative will be that he focused way too much on being a brand, a controversial cancel-me internet brand, and not nearly enough on being an elite mixed martial artist.
And here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on before the weekend. Sean Strickland argues that society is ruined by empowerment, by people standing up for their diverse identities.
That's his core thesis.
He is stepping into a cage to face Anthony Hernandez, a man who is literally fueled by deep pride in his heritage and his community.
That is the core conflict of the fight.
If Hernandez dominates, if he goes out there and tortures Strickland for 25 minutes, what does that say about Strickland's worldview? Does the worldview crumble when it gets punched in the mouth by the very thing it spent the week mocking?
It's a great question.
But conversely, and we have to acknowledge this possibility, if Strickland wins, if he goes out there amidst all this hate with all the outside distractions and puts on an absolute technical masterclass,
That is the very uncomfortable question the sport has to face.
does that, in some twisted way, validate his entire method of promotion? Does it prove to the next generation of fighters that you can say whatever you want, offend whoever you want, as long as you win?
In this sport, unfortunately, winning is often the only detergent. It washes away a lot of sins. We'll find out if it works for Strickland on Saturday night.
We certainly will. Don't miss